Hello, my name is Sarima, and today I will present to you my submission to the Cursed Conlang Circus 3. My conlang is called Mohizbiz, and its core gimmick is that everything uses hexadecimal digits. It's also somewhat inspired by Ithquil in that it's heavily dependent on the context of the situation so that everything can be inflected properly. Now, in videos explaining how a conlang works, people usually start with the phonology. However, I'll leave it for last since it's tied to the writing system. Instead, let's begin with the vocabulary. All stems of my conlang are made with 4 hex digits. For example, the stem for person is made with digits A34D, the stem for knowledge or knowing in general with 1017, and anything that refers to death, dead things, or even murder uses the stem C7F7. If you want to express a concept that requires more than one stem, you can combine stems using the XOR operation to create a compound stem. For example, in order to create the stem for corpse, we can combine the stems for person and death, which we've seen earlier, and XOR them to create the stem 24BA, which means corpse or being a corpse. Because the stems are made with 4 hex digits, this means there are more than 60,000 possible stems. For comparison, native English speakers have a vocabulary of 20 to 35,000 words. Now let's talk about how verbs are made and inflected. All sentences must start with 3 hex digits, called the lead digits. After them, the verb stem is placed. These lead digits convey grammatical information about the verb and the sentence as a whole. Firstly, the difference between the largest lead digit and the smallest indicates the tense and polarity of the verb. Polarity in essence determines if the sentence is positive or negative. Also, if any lead digit is repeated, then that means that the verb has the perfective aspect. However, this only applies if the difference I mentioned earlier is at least 2. If it's 0 or 1, then the perfective aspect doesn't apply. Here I have a table listing all the possible differences and their associated tenses and polarities. There are 5 tenses listed on the left, which are present, past, future, and then 100 years into the past or into the future. Next, the 3 columns are for polarities, the positive polarity and negative, and there's also the unsure polarity, which is used when it's not known whether the sentence is true or not. This polarity is equivalent to using the word might in English. Something else worth pointing out is that a difference of 14 has 2 possible polarities. This is because my language recognizes that any predictions beyond 100 years into the future are very speculative, so it's impossible to be absolutely certain of them. Now, there are special differences that don't appear anywhere in this table, one of which is a difference of 0, aka if all the lead digits are the same. If this happens, the sentence is actually a command, and uses imperative mode in addition to being in the present tense by default. There's also a difference of 1, which indicates that the rest of that message is fake and should be ignored. This can be used when suspecting that a third party is eavesdropping and you need to interrupt your communication immediately. However, it has another use which I'll discuss later on. For now, let's move on to another piece of information conveyed by lead digits, which is the style of the sentence. In other words, what kind of text or communicative situation is at hand. There are 6 possible styles, and they differ in the order of the lead digits. In this table, A means the smallest lead digit, B is the middlemost, and C is the largest. Statement is the most neutral style. Anything from a conversation to a letter falls into this category. The explanation is a more nuanced and fancy version of statement. It covers anecdotal experiences, excuses, reasoning, and anything else that can be considered explaining of some sort. Next, thoughts cover anything that someone tells to themselves or something they think but don't necessarily say aloud. The poetry style is pretty self-explanatory. It's for poetry. A story means a narrative of some kind, whether it's fictional or not. And finally, the confidential style refers to any piece of information that is restricted to a select few people to know. This can range from a small secret among friends to governmental nuclear launch codes. This style covers the entire spectrum of secrecy. So now that I've explained verbs, let's talk about nouns and adverbs. To start, we need to look at the medium lead digit, which is neither the largest nor the smallest, and we'll be calling it the reference from now on. Nouns and adverbs begin with a grammatical case mark. This marker is a digit with a certain offset from the reference, looping around if necessary. This offset is what determines the case. There are 8 possible cases, 4 for nouns and 4 for adverbs. Among the nominative cases, there is the absolutive case, denoting who or what experiences the action of the verb or is affected by it. Then there's ergative case, indicating who does the action or causes the effect of the verb to the party in absolutive case. There's the dative case, designating someone who is also involved in the verb action and is passively affected by it. And finally, the enabler case, which shows the entity responsible for the action to take place or allows it to happen in the first place. As for the adverbial cases, there's the locative case, used to locate actions in a specific place, the ablative case, pointing out the time at which the action happens, the functive case, specifying the manner in which the action is occurring, and the quantitative case, denoting how much, how many times, or how frequently the action takes place. After the case marker, there's an extra digit placed after it, the number of stems that the noun of adverb has. In case there's more than one stem, the first stem is the most important one, while all other stems are modifiers, which apply to the previous stem. For example, to say next person, you have to use the stem for person followed by the stem for next. And to say powerful flavor, you would use the stems flavor and power in that order. This can be extended to include possessives. As such, my lover can be expressed with the stems lover and me. Now, going back to the offsets, there's a different set of offsets called contextual offsets. These must be placed before the case marker and convey pragmatic information. There are 6 contextual offsets possible, which are suggestive, meaning there is more information that isn't being explicitly stated and the recipient should infer; highlight, which marks for the topic of the sentence; metaphor, signifying that which isn't literal but rather carries a different meaning altogether; hyperbole, denoting an exaggeration usually used with the poetry style; ironic, indicating that the intended meaning is the opposite of what it's stated; and the emphatic, amplifying the emotional aspect the speaker or writer has. In addition to these, there are 2 special offsets. One of these is offset 0, which indicates the beginning of a subordinate sentence. These subordinate sentences have their own lead digits, but unlike the lead digits of the main sentence, these don't convey style. There are 2 types of subordinate sentences. Firstly, there are those with grammatical case. These sentences have a role inside the main sentence, so they have a case marker right after the beginning of said subordinate sentence. It should be noted that this case marker is considered the first lead digit of the subordinate sentence, and the second type of subordinate sentences don't have cases, but rather they modify the previous noun or adverb. To indicate them, the first lead digit cannot be a case marker, and it's recommended to use a contextual offset which, if used like this, loses its meaning and becomes a regular lead digit. It should be noted that, despite being modifiers, sentences of this type don't count towards the number of stems of the noun or adverb they modify. And aside from offset 0, there's another special offset, and that is offset 8. It has multiple functions, which are determined by what digit follows it, and I've organized all these functions by rows so that we can tackle them in order. The first row of functions are used to connect 2 sentences or more, and as such they require new lead digits for the new sentence that is about to begin. There's an exception to this rule, and that is the digit 0 is also used to end subordinate sentences, and it automatically returns to the main clause if you use it this way. Digit 1 is used for enumerating items in the list, which are themselves sentences of their own. Digit 2 is used to introduce a question, but by default that question is polar, aka a yes or no question. To ask non-polar questions, you need interrogative pronouns, which are made with the appropriate case marker followed by the 0 stems. Relative pronouns are constructed in the same manner, only without the question. Digit 3 denotes a sequence of events that happen in order, one after another. Moving on to the second row, which consists of connectors between multiple nouns or adverbs with the same case. After placing the offset 8 and the appropriate digit, you also need the number of stems of the noun or adverb you're adding. Digit 4 is equivalent to and, whereas digit 5 is equivalent to either, in that it offers a choice between options and only one can be chosen or is correct. Digit 6 shows a contrast between two things, equivalent to but, and digit 7 refers to another noun or adverb to which the first one is compared to. The third row is a little bit special. It's used for specific attributes, of which there's name, number, and color. To use them, you have to state their length in hex digits first, and then you place the attribute. Color is an exception to this, since it always uses 6 digits. These attributes are always modifiers, and they never have grammatical case. Now, names have to be converted to hex in order to work with my language. The way to do it is to interpret the name as a number in base 36, also known as hexadecimal, and then convert it into hex. Digit 9 by default refers to a cardinal number. If you want to write an ordinal number, you must place a 0 right at the beginning of the number. As I said before, digit A uses 6 digits to express color, which are then interpreted as a hex color code. Digit B is used when there's more than 15 digits in a name or number. In these cases, you can place an extension after the 15 digits and continue the name or number from there. The last row consists of expressions and interjections. They can be used all by themselves, or they can act as extra contextual offsets. Digit C refers to a general positive feeling, and digit D is used to convey an understanding of what's being said, but not necessarily that you agree. Digit D is used as an expression of worry or unease in general, and digit F is equivalent to a curse word. Now, once you've assembled all the hex digits, you might think that you're done. Unfortunately, there is one more step to go through, and that is relation. This step is, in essence, an encryption to signify the situation and relationship the speaker or writer has to the recipient. Relation has two parts: the environment, which determines the substitution cipher to be used, and tier, which conveys how the message is transposed. The ciphers should be used in the order I just mentioned: environment and then tier. There are 3 possible environments, which are familiar, to be used when addressing someone you know or trust, which uses a trithemius cipher consisting of shifting each digit by 1 more than the previous one, starting at 0. The next one is business, best suited for co-workers or any person working at the same place as you. The cipher for business is the Vigenère cipher, and the key for it is the lead digits of the sentence. It should be noted that the lead digits themselves don't get shifted. And finally, there's the official environment. This is used anytime there's a governmental or public figure involved in the situation. The cipher for this is an auto key cipher. The way it works is that the first digit is unaltered, and then for every other digit in the plain text, you XOR it with the previous digit in the ciphertext. As for the tiers, there are also 3 possible ones. The first is equal, which is used when addressing someone in the same level, status, or rank as the speaker or writer. This tier doesn't modify the order of the digits at all. Then there's a superior tier, used when the recipient has a higher level. When using this tier, you begin at the first digit, and then you skip every other digit until you reach the end, where you go over these digits you skipped previously in backwards order. Finally, there's the inferior tier, which is the opposite of the superior. It's used to denote that the recipient is lower in level, and to indicate it, you begin at the end, skip every other digit until you reach the start, and then go over the rest of the digits. However, we need to tackle one more relation, and that is the stranger relation, used in cases where you don't know who the recipient is that well. To indicate this, you must prepend the message with 4 introductory hex digits. Then, each digit in the message is assigned an intro digit in order. So the first message digit is assigned the first intro digit, the second with the second intro digit, the third with the third, fourth with the fourth, and the fifth loops on to the first intro digit. You carry on with the rest of the message like this. After doing this, you must shift each of the message digits forward by its corresponding intro digit. Now, so far, this is like a Vigenère cipher. However, at the end, you place the digits in order of their intro digit. So those with the first intro digit go first, then those with the second, then the third, and lastly those with the fourth. Let's do an example. Suppose we want to encrypt this string using this stranger relation and the intro digits 890D. So how do we do this? Now, Firstly, each digit of the string has an intro digit associated. D has an 8, F has a 9, E has a 0, and so on with the rest. Then the intro digits tell us how much to shift each digit of the message. D shifted 8 times becomes a 5, F shifted 9 times becomes an 8, E doesn't get shifted because it has a 0, etc. Now we take all the transform digits of the first column, 518, then the second 80E, then the third E18, and finally ED. We add the intro digits at the start, yielding the resulting string, which is this one. After encrypting the hex string with the appropriate position, we are ready to move on to the writing system. The first step is to take the entire hex string and divide it into chunks of 10 digits. I have labeled the digits of the chunk in order from A to J. Each chunk represents a single character, and to accomplish this, we first take the digits A, D, G, and J and combine them into a Unicode code point. This represents the character corresponding to the chunk, but the rest of the digits determine its color. Combining the remaining digits yields the color coding hex of the character of the chunk. As an example, this chunk will translate into this character because its Unicode code point is 977C and its color code is 17D050. However, you may come across some situations that need to be addressed, such as in the case that there isn't a valid Unicode code point for a chunk. In this case, you can reverse the order of the digits of that chunk and try again. If the Unicode code point is now valid, you can put the resulting character on black marking to indicate the reversal of the chunk. This is called an inverse character, an example of which is the very title of my conlang. However, if this fails, you'll have to change some part of the message, such as the order of the nouns and adverbs. Another problem you may come across is that the amount of digits in the message isn't a multiple of 10. A way to fix this is to use special chunks of 11 digits. In this case, the final digit, labeled as K, becomes part of the Unicode code point for the character. For example, this chunk has 11 digits, and so its Unicode code point is 246CB, with a color code of 0409F6. However, if this isn't enough, you can put a fake message at the end of the string, using lead digits with a difference of 1, as I mentioned at the beginning. Now, to finish the explanation, let's focus on the phonology of my conlang. First, a list of all the phonemes. There are 16 vowels and 16 consonants, each one associated with a hex digit. The vowels are I, U, U, E, U, O, E, O, A, O. And the consonants are P, B, T, D, K, G, M, N, V, F, V, S, Z, H, R, L. Next, the syllabic structure is CVC most of the time, but in some cases there's an extra vowel at the end of the syllable. There's also some allophonic variations to take into account when it comes to consonants in contact. First, two alveolar taps combine into a trill R. Next, the alveolar nasal becomes a velar when it's followed by a velar sound, so ng would become ung, for example. Lastly, when two plosive sounds are in contact, the first one becomes long fricative. This means that geminated plosives don't exist, but all other consonants can be geminated. As for the vowels, they have tones, 4 basic tones and then a special midtone. Now, let me show you how to convert hex digits into something pronounceable. You'll have to use the same chunks as in the writing section, and each one will represent 3 syllables. The digits C, F, and I shall be translated into vowels using the phoneme table I showed before, whereas the digits B, D, E, G, H, and J will be the consonants. The tones of each vowel are indicated by the digit A. By converting this digit into binary and considering pairs of adjacent binary digits, each pair corresponds to a vowel in order, and the digits of the pairs convey the tone that should be used. There is a special rule for chunks of 11 digits. The digit K is an extra vowel at the end of the third syllable and is always pronounced with a midtone. For example, This character from before will be pronounced pechbeimloser. Note that due to allophonic variations, this sound, which is normally a plosive, is instead a long fricative. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the sample text translation. I've chosen the title quote to translate, and here it is. Due to how compact my writing system is, it only uses 17 characters. The message in hex is this. I should mention that I've used the familiar environment and an equal tier, given that this is an internal monologue. Here you can see the structure of the message, with all the stems, inflections, cases, subordinate sentences, and everything else. And here is a literal translation of the message. Now, due to the fact that the sentence breaks are baked into the hex transcription, this should be pronounced as if it were a single long sentence, which I will now attempt to pronounce. Doch saf sis du mes faf geht hüfsen nicht aufgekühlt mes höbrab This is it for my presentation. I hope you found my conlang interesting, and thank you very much for your attention.